Ukraine's retaliation campaign against Russia has entered a new and far more dangerous phase. The time for warning is over. In recent days, a massive crisis struck Moscow when Ukraine launched one of its most extensive drone operations yet. 12 Russian regions were plunged into darkness after a series of strikes crippled power stations, halting public transport, and leaving roughly 20,000 people stranded inside tunnels. Traffic lights went dark, businesses closed, and parts of the Russian capital were thrown into chaos. While the Kremlin scrambled to restore control, the head of Ukraine's drone forces made it clear that this was not an isolated incident or a symbolic gesture. Ukrainian officials signaled that recurring blackouts are likely during winter operations. Hours after that statement, Ukraine proved it was not bluffing. A large-scale drone assault struck 5 power stations across Russia in a single night, reducing available power across regions, affecting households and industry. The same wave of attacks also targeted a critical fuel pipeline system near Moscow that transports millions of tons of jet fuel, diesel, and gasoline to the Russian military. The strike signaled that Russia's rear areas, once assumed safe, were no longer out of reach. The message was unmistakable. Putin cannot shield his economy or his troops from Ukrainian reach. The strikes highlighted vulnerabilities in Russia's rear area defenses. This was not Ukraine merely showing off its new capabilities. The assault followed a devastating Russian attack that killed 15 Ukrainian civilians and wounded 20 more. President Volodymyr Zelensky had vowed that every such act would be met with a proportional response. True to his word, Ukraine struck back, not at civilians, but at the infrastructure that fuels the Russian war machine. The results were dramatic. Reports from inside Russia described widespread outages. Metro trains in Moscow came to a standstill, with dozens of them stuck underground. 43 trains carrying more than 20,000 passengers were trapped in tunnels as the city's power grid collapsed. Fire crews had to evacuate commuters in darkness. Businesses shut down, offices closed, and traffic froze across the capital. It was one of the largest disruptions Moscow has faced since the start of the full-scale war. This wave of blackouts was part of a drone offensive involving an estimated 700 to 800 Ukrainian drones, a scale few had seen before. The strikes revealed just how vulnerable Russian infrastructure remains, despite heavy investments in air defense. For ordinary Russians, the blackout served as a grim reminder that the war they supported or tolerated is now striking their own neighborhoods. While these attacks primarily hit civilian infrastructure, Ukraine also targeted key military assets. One of the most notable operations was the destruction of the Savo oil pipeline system in Moscow. The network consists of 3 major pipelines used to transport enormous volumes of fuel to Russian bases: jet fuel, diesel, and gasoline essential for air and ground operations. Despite the Kremlin's efforts to protect the network with anti-drone netting and armed guards, Ukrainian drones penetrated the defenses and detonated their payloads. Putin's multi-million ruble countermeasures were insufficient to prevent damage. Fires were reported along segments of the pipeline network following the strikes. Soon after these attacks, the head of Ukraine's drone forces issued a statement aimed directly at the Kremlin. The timing was deliberate, hours after the Halloween night blackout, as Russians struggled without power. His message was both taunting and confident. Blackout is not scary, it's an inconvenience. Get used to it. He compared Ukrainian drones to free birds, unpredictable and unstoppable. These birds and other components of our deep attack forces promise you adaptation, he said, adding mockingly, torches, flashlights, candles, light warmer boom, dark winter. The statement underscored that these attacks were not random, but part of a calculated strategy to impose sustained energy pressure on Russia. And true to his words, within hours of this warning, Ukraine launched another massive operation, hitting 5 more power stations in one night. The strikes targeted regions both inside Russia and in occupied Ukrainian territories such as Luhansk. Even Russian-installed local leaders were forced to acknowledge the damage publicly. The scale of destruction was too great to dismiss as drone debris, the common Kremlin explanation for explosions. A regional head stated that drones struck power facilities across several districts. A Russian general who once helped seize Luhansk in 2014 commented on the attacks from his prison cell, further proving how widely the news spread across Russia despite censorship. Video clips uploaded by Russian citizens showed drones flying brightly across the night sky moments before everything went black. In Kursk, about 16,000 residents lost power after one substation was hit. In Lipetsk, similar footage showed distant explosions lighting up the horizon. Each strike added to a mounting crisis in the Russian grid. Ukrainian sources estimated approximately 5,000 MW or MVA of capacity taken offline during these operations. Translating that into everyday terms, it means enough electricity to power between 1 and 5 million homes. While not every watt of that energy went to residential areas, since factories and military sites consume much of it, the figures still reveal the magnitude of the blow. Entire industrial zones went offline, and the grid's stability was compromised. Repairing such damage is not immediate. Though Russia has proven capable of patching infrastructure within weeks, the frequency of Ukrainian attacks has stretched those repair efforts thin. With drone strikes occurring almost nightly, Russian engineers face difficult choices: which facilities to fix first and which to abandon. Even when a plant is repaired, another strike often follows within days. Beyond the immediate destruction, Russia's energy sector faces a deeper problem. Most of its refineries, roughly 34 across the country, were built with Western technology and components. Sanctions have severely restricted access to replacement parts. That means every successful drone hit causes damage that may take months to fully restore, as Russia struggles to find alternative suppliers or black market substitutes. Over time, these compounding blows are eroding the structural integrity of the Russian energy system. And while Ukraine's drone capabilities continue to evolve, its missile arsenal is expanding too. Just days ago, President Zelensky confirmed that Ukraine has deployed its domestically developed Flamingo cruise missiles in at least 9 operations so far. He also announced plans to mass produce them before the end of the year. This development could significantly boost Ukraine's long-range strike capacity, reducing its dependence on Western-supplied weapons and enabling sustained attacks deeper into Russian territory. Recent operations have already demonstrated this growing capability. On Halloween night, Ukraine's navy struck the Oriol thermal plant using its Neptune missile system, a weapon originally designed to target ships, but now adapted for land strikes. The regional Russian governor tried to downplay the explosion, claiming it was caused by drone debris. However, video footage shows a large detonation. Observers said the sound differed from typical drone impacts. Local residents, accustomed to hearing drone impacts, confirmed that this explosion sounded entirely different, more powerful, more destructive. The Ukrainian Navy stated it employed a Neptune missile in the strike. Each of these actions represents a shift in the war's balance of deterrence. Ukraine is no longer reacting defensively, it is shaping the operational tempo. With winter approaching, Russia faces the prospect of repeated blackouts and fuel disruptions that will test both its military logistics and domestic morale. For ordinary Russians, the war that once seemed distant is coming home in the form of cold apartments and darkened streets. Despite the scale of these developments, major outlets provided brief coverage relative to OSINT reporting. Legacy outlets have offered brief mentions, often buried under broader war summaries. But independent analysts and Ukrainian sources have been documenting these events closely, revealing a pattern of deliberate escalation and technical innovation from Kyiv. Ukraine's shift toward indigenous weapons, both drones and missiles, underscores how the country is adapting under pressure and reducing its vulnerability to foreign arms restrictions. The blackout operations are not just military strikes, they are psychological warfare. Each outage undermines Russian confidence in state protection and forces the Kremlin to divert resources inward. Each explosion on Russian soil shatters the illusion of security that Putin's propaganda depends on. The Ukrainian command knows that breaking the enemy's sense of safety can be as effective as destroying their tanks. As the nights grow longer and temperatures drop, both sides are preparing for a brutal winter campaign. Ukraine's promise of a dark winter for Russia may become reality if these strikes continue. The combination of sustained drone attacks and new cruise missile capabilities could stretch Russian defenses far beyond what they can handle. While Western governments debate future aid packages and sanctions, Ukraine is already executing a sophisticated asymmetric strategy, striking where Russia is least prepared, making every ruble spent on defense less effective. For the Kremlin, it's an unnerving new chapter, one where geography offers no refuge and technology no guarantee. And yet, amid this escalation, the focus remains on Ukraine's resilience and innovation. The country has turned adversity into creativity, building drones and missiles from scratch, while maintaining public morale under relentless bombardment. The war has become not just a test of weapons, but of will and ingenuity. This is why independent coverage remains essential. Many mainstream networks shy away from showing the raw footage or acknowledging the full extent of Ukrainian strikes. But the reality on the ground, documented through open source intelligence and citizen videos, shows a conflict evolving rapidly, and a Ukrainian strategy that is working. For those following this war closely, these updates reveal more than just explosions. They illustrate the changing face of modern warfare, where power grids become battlefields and drones act as precision weapons of deterrence. As President Zelensky warned, Russia will now feel the consequences of every attack on Ukrainian civilians, not in distant battlefields, but within its own borders. The coming months will determine how effective this campaign becomes and how Russia adapts. Can Moscow repair its broken infrastructure faster than Ukraine can destroy it? Will sanctions choke its repair capacity completely? Or will Ukraine's growing domestic weapons production tip the scales permanently? One thing is clear, this winter will not resemble the last two. Ukraine now has the tools, intelligence, and determination to strike back deep inside Russia. For Putin, whose strategy once relied on exhausting Ukrainian endurance, the balance of exhaustion may finally be shifting the other way.